right, thank you for your patience. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could please rise for the pledge, and I would like to ask Kristen to lead us in the pledge today.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Let's see, just a couple quick announcements to start. One, we had a press release go out earlier this week that announced that Fairfield's second annual holiday shop and stroll is on Thursday, December 11th. This is being co-sponsored by the town and the Fairfield Chamber of Commerce. Participating shops from Black Rock Turnpike, Southport, Greenfield Hill, Merchant Row, Post Road East, and Fairfield Center will stay open till 9 p.m. and will offer an assortment of hors d'oeuvres and seasonal refreshments to shoppers. There will be traveling carolers and musicians will fill the air with holiday cheer, and local restaurants will be offering dinner and drink specials. As an added attraction this year, we'll also feature a 90-minute ice sculpting demonstration beginning at 6 p.m. at Sherman Green by the world-renowned ice carver Bill Kovitz of Ice Matters. Mr. Kovitz will be exhibiting his considerable talents and skill carving a single block of ice into a holiday motif. Additional ice sculptures will be on display at several downtown locations, courtesy of Kleban Properties, Henry C. Reed & Son Jewelers, and Fischel Properties. Southport Merchants will also be sponsoring an annual Christmas walk on December 11th, with festivities set to begin with special guest Santa's arrival in Southport Village via fire truck at 5 p.m. We want to especially thank this year's sponsors, Kleban Property, Fischel Properties, Henry C. Reed & Sons Jewelers, and our media sponsors, Hearst Media Group and Fairfield Citizen News and BizBuzz TV. On another front, we sent out a press release earlier that we're asking our community, in remembrance of the Sandy Hook anniversary coming up on December 14th, to perform random acts of kindness on or around the anniversary of this tragic event, Sunday, December 14th. This is a call for kindness to honor those who lost their lives at Sandy Hook Elementary School. The Fairfield community is encouraged to post their acts of kindness on the Towns of Fairfield's Facebook page, which is www.facebook.com/FairfieldCT. There are other ways to honor the victims of this tragedy, not only by sharing on the town's Facebook page, donating to the town social services holiday gift giving program, and you can get more information on that at 256-3166. That's 203-256-3166. Or also just spend time with family and friends and neighbors and reflecting on how fortunate we are. I was coming back from my holiday trip to South Carolina, and there was a song that was playing called The Alternate Route, entitled Nothing More. And one of the lines in that was really saying that we are how we treat each other and nothing more. And that kind of hit home with this. And if you remember the closing ceremonies of the Olympics, this was the song that was playing then. As part of that. So thank you for that. I do have just one more quick special announcement. It turns out that our own Jerry Spino is having a birthday today.
Are we going to sing?
So, Jerry, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jerry. Happy birthday to you.
Oh, nice harmony.
I was hoping you could clean up the pitch on some of my words, Jerry, with your editing.
Thank you all so very much.
All right. Now, back to business. Next item up, to consider and act upon the minutes of regular meeting of November 17th, 2014. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second.
A second.
All right. Any discussion?
We have,
No, it's in the agenda.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
never mind, no discussion.
Okay,
All right. Are we ready to vote?
we are.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next up, some resignations. This is for information only, both from the Board of Finance. Catherine C. Albin, Democrat, 2457 Burr Street, for a term of 11/11 through 11/17. The resignation date was December 3rd, 2014. That was effective at noon today. And second, Kenneth Brackfeld, Democrat, 2493 Reading Road, term from 11/09 to 11/15. Resignation date December 3rd also, and it was effective at noon today. First Selectman reappointments. These are appointments that are done by the First Selectman, so they are for information only. But to announce on the Conservation Commission, James Lucy, unaffiliated, 316 Katona Drive, for a term of 11/14 through 11/19, and that's an alternate position. Kathleen Maxim, Democrat, 553 North Benson Road, for a term of 11/14 to 11/19. Raymond Poncelat, a Republican, 882 Reef Road, for a term of 11/14 to 11/19 as an alternate. And Charles Rowan, unaffiliated, 8 Philemon Street, for a term of 11/14 for 11/19, and that's also an alternate position. On the Employees Retirement Board, reappointment Jeff Mullen. This one will require RTM approval. 20 Republican for 2739 Bronson Road, and that's a term of 11/14 to 11/19. And on the Fairfield Housing Authority, Maureen K. Delaney, unaffiliated, 15 Pine Tree Lane, for a term of 11/14 to 11/19, and she's the resident member of that board. Reappointments. To hear, consider, and act upon the following appointments. Do we want to take these as a group or one at a time?
I'm fine as a group.
A group is good.
Okay. Then let me read them, and then we'll take a motion to accept at the end. To hear, consider, and act upon the following reappointments. These are folks that are currently serving on the boards and are being reappointed. For the Fire Commission, Craig B. Van Steenbergen, Republican, 292 Riverside Drive, for a term of 11/14 to 11/19. Flood and Erosion Control Board, Richard Domchowski, unaffiliated, 241 Colonial Drive, for a term of 11/14 to 11/19. Greater Bridgeport Transit Authority, this does require RTM approval. Mitchell Fuchs, Democrat, 202 Melody Lane, from a term of 11/14 to 11/18. D. Parks and Rec Commission, Alexa Milady, Republican, 143 Rolling Hills Drive, for a term of 11/14 to 11/19. E. Police Commission, Susan P. Barrett, Democrat, 122 Wilton Road, for a term of 11/14 to 11/19. Shellfish Commission, Richard Ferrari, Democrat, 153 Figler Avenue, for a term of 11/14 to 11/19. And lastly, Solid Waste and Recycling Commission. This one also requires RTM approval. Robert Stilson, Republican, 103 Orchard Hill Drive, for a term of 11/14 to 11/18. May I have a motion to accept
So moved.
and a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, please.
So I see that there are a number of folks here who are among the faithful servants for our town and who have been here, and I just want to thank all of you for continuing to serve the town so well, and we're grateful for that. I also just wanted to put another plug in for Greater Bridgeport Transit while we're doing this reappointment. We are still in need of another person for that, and in the spirit of party balance, as we always like to, an unaffiliated or Republican voter. So if anyone knows someone who's particularly interested in that, please let the First Selectman's office know. As we said, I think it was 2 meetings ago. So,
I think that's a very good plug. When you consider that for Fairfield County, the 2 biggest issues we have, no surprise to anyone here, are jobs and transportation. Serving on the Greater Bridgeport Transit Authority can help further the cause of improved mass transit for our section of the state, and that helps our job and local economy. So I would encourage anybody we have to step up for that. Kevin, did you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, I'd like to second the comments of my colleagues and thank all the candidates and the members for volunteering to serve our town once again. Thank you.
And of the names I listed, I can see Craig here, Susan here. Who else is here? All right, there we go. Very good. All right, again, since you're here personally, thank you for your service. I know you've taken up the charge, you step forward, you help our town. When we talk about volunteer leadership in this town being so key and so crucial to keeping Fairfield special. Thank you for being willing to continue to serve in that capacity and keeping our town as special it is. Congratulations to all. Item 8, first selectman appointments. This also is for information only. One of the reasons all these appointments come up is a lot of our terms end on November 30th. So we have what's called a batch size problem. We have a lot of terms ending, so we have a lot of new appointments to make, and we have a lot of reappointments to make at this point in time. So that's kind of what causes the log jam here, if you will, in appointments. But the first selectman appointment to the Fairfield Citizen Corps Council, Daphne Dixon from 177 Sigwin Drive as coordinator, and that appointment date was effective November 20th, 2014. Now up to a series of appointments. To hear, consider, and act upon the following appointments. We'll take these one board at a time, if that's okay.
Yes.
For the Board of Finance, Tara Cook Littman, Democrat, 160 Stella Lane, for a term of 11/9 through 11/15. This is to fill a vacancy for Kenneth Brackfeld, who resigned. And second, John Matola, Democrat, 21 Surrey Lane, for a term of 11/11 through 11/17, to fill a vacancy for Catherine Alban, who resigned. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All right, any comments from the board?
Just quickly, I would like to thank both of the appointees for volunteering to serve on the Board of Finance. I've known Mr. Mottola for a number of years through school and through government. And Mrs. Cook Littman, I've gotten to meet in the last few months and have spent some time conversing with her on the phone about the Board of Finance and how important the board it is to our town. And as Mr. Tetro will probably agree with, the Board of Finance, since that's the board that we both came through, is a board that is near and dear to our heart and does a lot of great work for the town of Fairfield, as do all the boards and commissions. But the Board of Finance, over the years, I mean, I served on that board for 15 years, and I was the chair for 5 years plus. And it has been a board that has always just been the epitome of good government. It's been non-political, nonpartisan, professional, and the members of that board are always doing what's in the best interest of our town. And one of the greatest qualities of that board is something that, I mean, we're all very proud of, is it's one of those boards, and not that the other boards are not, I'm not saying that, but it is a board that you can walk into a meeting and you can sit down and you can listen to what they're saying, you can see how they're interacting, you can see how they're addressing an issue, how they're working hard, how they're working together in the best interest of our town, and you can never tell who the Republicans are and who the Democrats are. And I think that's a great asset, and the board is a great asset to our town, and the members of that board set a great example for all boards and commissions in our town. So thank you for volunteering to carry on that tradition.
All right. Kristen?
Well, Mr. Matola and Mrs. Cook Littman, I am very grateful to both of you, as I have said to you individually and collectively. I'm an RTMer at heart, right? So I have also, though, joined with the Board of Finance, and I agree and concur with Selectman Kiley. It's really critical, as both of you know, and we're very fortunate to have the two of you coming in with your skill sets, your experience, your perspective, and I think what you bring to that body and that group will make it even stronger and an even better place. And I also, in saying that, would like I think it's good to have that new, fresh perspective. But I would also like to acknowledge Catherine Alban and Ken Brockfeld as they move into a different portion of their lives and a different chapter. I think that they've done a tremendous job on that board and have really served the town residents well. And I just want to acknowledge them as we go forward. So thank you both very much for stepping up and being willing to serve.
All right. And just to add my comments, I concur with my colleagues. Also, I think that between Tara and John, we have an excellent example of the balance that we've tried to achieve in our boards. Mr. Mottola brings to the table his years on the Board of Education and the RTM. So he's got a perspective for how our government works, what takes place, and can certainly more than hit the ground running from that standpoint. And then on the other hand, Ms. Cook-Lippman is kind of new to town government, has been very active at the state level, has been very successful advocate for our families, for education, and for GMO food labeling, which is what I got to know her through initially. But I think she also brings, has been mentioned, a new perspective in, and I think that kind of balance, some new and some experience to kind of balance out the board and help with that. And it's interesting that they're replacing Kathy Alvin, who had been spent quite a bit of time on the Board of Ed and other boards in town in her service, and Ken Brackfeld, where the Board of Finance was really his first venture into boards and governing town, other than the brief stint on the pension board prior to that. So I think that we had two balanced individuals, and we've replaced them with two balanced individuals. So again, thank you very much for your commitment to town service. We did motion to accept that. Any public comment on either or two candidates? All right, back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
We are.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Guys, congratulations.
What's his name?
Would either of you care to say a few words? Tara, John? If you're going to do that, you need to do it from up here.
Well, I wasn't prepared to say a few words, but I will just thank you all for the opportunity to serve our town in this way, because as you all know, I'm committed to our community. I care very deeply about Fairfield and the people who live here, and I'm just really grateful for this opportunity to have a way to give back and help. So thank you.
Thank you.
Same here. I really appreciate the opportunity. You know, I read in the paper this morning that the board couldn't vote on Penfield last night, so I was kind of hoping they would have gotten that over with before I got on there, but it'll be an issue I'll have to deal with, which I'm
Saving it for you, John.
They
Saving it for
were,
you.
so, but I really do appreciate the confidence. I enjoy serving this town, and I look forward to doing so over the next few years. Thank you.
Okay, John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Then, all right, next, to hear, consider and act upon the following appointments to the Police and Fire Retirement Board: Kenneth J. Brackfeld, Democrat, 2493 Reading Road, for a term of 11/14 to 11/17, to fill a vacancy for Frederick Schaefer, whose term expired. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Any comments?
I would love to.
Go ahead.
So I think in some respects, perhaps Mr. Brockfeld's going back to his initial love, and he clearly has a passion and commitment to our employees who are in their retirement, and I think that he will be a welcome addition back to that group who meets jointly. And again, would like to also acknowledge Fred Schaefer and his resignation as well for his many years of service. But that group has become a very strong group, and I think Ken will bring a lot back to the table.
Kevin?
I certainly agree with that. I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Brockfeld last night, today, and he's very excited to go back to the pension board, which is his original area of expertise here for our town. And Mr. Brockfeld leaves big shoes to fill that will be filled by our new Board of Finance appointees. And he has he has made a very positive impact on the Board of Finance during his tenure there. And he has brought to the attention of our town the importance of funding pensions properly and on an annual basis, so that we look at the long-term planning and strategies of our town every day. And now he can go back to the pension board and contribute there, and I'm sure he'll do a wonderful job there. And I want to thank him for his service on both the Board of Finance and on the upcoming pension board.
Yes, it has been mentioned, Ken's true love is really finance and pensions. I think he's going to find it a little bit different on the pension board. Ken left the the pension board and joined us on the
That's-
Board of Finance.
He did, that's right. Yeah.
Over 3 years ago. And when I took office here as first selectman, one of the first things we did was change the meeting schedule for the Board of Finance. It now meets every month rather than once a quarter. The meetings have been a bit longer and a bit more formal in terms of what's going through it as we've gone through and reallocated funds in this literally traumatic economic environment to make sure that the pension returns are what they should be to save the taxpayers as much dollars as we can in that regard. And over the past 3 to 4 years has been very successful in terms of that return on investment. So I think Ken's going to bring quite a bit of expertise to the board, and we'll continue to try and build that. But again, somebody else that I think we all owe a debt of gratitude and our thanks for his continued service. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
Mm-hmm.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Mr. Brockfeld, wherever you are, thank you very much for your service. Next up, the Shellfish Commission. To hear, consider, and act upon the following appointment. Timothy Macklin, unaffiliated, 41 Bel Air Lane, for a term of 11/14 to 11/19, to fill a vacancy for Sarah Harold, whose term expired. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Any comments from my colleagues? Kevin, Kristen?
Just a thank you for, again, coming forward to serve, and this is one of those commissions that perhaps we don't give a lot of attention to, but it is something very important to the culture and heritage and health of our town.
Just a big thank you for Mr. Macklin for stepping up and volunteering for our board.
I'd like to point out that the Shellfish Commission has actually been very heavily involved in the Mill River cleanup that we started recently, that we spent 6 to 9 months prior to that working with Exide and the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection to work out an improved mitigation plan to address that, and the Shellfish Commission was front and center as part of that. And then as that ongoing cleanup takes place, there is a continual stream of emails and correspondence that is tracking the progress and making sure that the cleanup stays within the parameters designated within that. So the Shellfish Commission, the Harbor Management Commission, and to some degree the Conservation Commission have ongoing responsibilities and communication as part of that. As we very much want Mill River cleaned up, we very much want that brownfield active, productive, and generating tax dollars, but we also want to make sure that Mill River is more vibrant and cleaner and more productive than before, because Mill River, in a real sense, is part of our heritage. I think that anybody who's lived here most of their life, as I have, has Mill River stories. I remember shoveling off the ice and playing hockey out there when I was a kid, and I remember my friends and I playing along the bank when I was growing up. So we want to make sure that future generations have that same option and responsibility. Any comments from the public? Back to the board. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Congratulations, Mr. Macklin. And did you want to say something
No,
up here?
I'm good, thank you.
You sure?
Thank you very much.
The shellfish guys don't get on TV all that often. This is your
I'm
chance.
good, we like to, stay behind the scenes.
Okay. Stay in your shell, so to speak.
Yeah.
I couldn't help that
you.
one. I'm sorry. All right. Solid Waste and Recycling Commission. This requires RTM approval. To hear, consider, and act upon the following appointments. Okay to take all three of these
Yes.
together?
Please.
All right. Charles McDonald, unaffiliated, 320 Old Mill Road, for a term of 11/12 through 11/16, to fill a vacancy for Sheila Dravis, who resigned. Patty Palmer, unaffiliated, 357 South Street, for a term of 11/14 to 11/18, to fill a vacancy for Virginia Casey, who resigned in the previous term. And Anthony Santacapita, unaffiliated, 43 Lakeview Place, for a term of 11/14 to 11/18, to fill a vacancy for Paul Crummins, whose term expired. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
I just want to take a moment to point out, just because it happened 3 times in a row, you'll notice that all 3 people being nominated for this board are unaffiliated. They're not a Democrat, they're not a Republican, they're not associated with an organized political party, even though Will Rogers said being a Democrat meant the same thing. I just want to, again, emphasize that sorry. That you don't have to be a Democrat or Republican to serve on a board or commission in this town. Any registered voter who resides in the town of Fairfield is welcome to serve on a board, and we encourage everyone to consider that and volunteer. We want all perspectives and all folks represented. Did we do the motion to accept?
We did.
Okay. Any comments from my colleagues?
I'd just like to thank the 3 volunteers for stepping up for this very important town board, and we look forward to working with each of you.
And I would add, I'm glad that Mr. Tetro highlighted what he did about affiliation. And one of the things that has impressed me the most as I have served on the Board of Selectmen is the depth and breadth of experience that comes to all our boards and commissions, even the ones that don't seem as if they would be, you know, as necessarily, I'm going to say important in quotes because this is important. And even today, the variety of experience that the 3 nominees and about to be appointees bring to the table is tremendous. So I was joking earlier about how I like to reuse and recycle things, and it's really critical. So I'm grateful to the 3 of you. I think 2 of you are here, I believe, so.
I see Charlie. Who else is here? Who do we have?
Is there someone? No? Okay, yes. Yes, I thought.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
There's,
Yes.
that's why I didn't see you. Yes,
Yeah.
right. Okay. Thank you for
I
coming.
have the angle.
We're going to have to get a balcony in here so we can see all the way back. All right. Any further comments? I concur with my colleagues, and there are so many different ways to get involved. If you have a passion, if you have an interest, if you're just curious about something, there is a way you can serve our town. So I would encourage you to reach out to my office, and we will line you up with something that fits. Any comments from the public? Back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. Would either of you care to say a few words? Set? Patty?
I just want to say thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank
No,
you.
thank you. You're welcome. All right. All right, moving on. Next up, the Center for Family Justice, to hear a report from the Center for Family Justice. Please come up and join us. While you're making your way up, I will take time to point out that Thursday night, there is a Christmas tree festival at Burr Mansion, and the recipient this year is the Center for Family Justice. So if you haven't signed up, actually it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I think it goes on. You can give us
It is.
further details.
Sure.
I will be joining you Thursday night.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you
Okay.
for Selectman Tetro and Selectman Kiley and Selectman McCarthy-Vahey. We thank you on behalf of the Center for Family Justice for the time to speak to you today. The center is seeking
Ms.
funding.
Greenwood, if you just take time to introduce yourself.
Oh, sure.
With your name and title. that
Oh,
would be
sure,
great.
sorry. I'm Deborah Greenwood. I'm the president and CEO of the Center for Family Justice. We're located at 753 Fairfield Avenue in Bridgeport, but we have a satellite office that has been in operation for the past 5 years here in Fairfield at 100 Mona Terrace at the Senior Center, which has been a very successful outcome for many Fairfield residents that are seeking free and confidential services, whether it's domestic violence or sexual assault or children that are being abused. We provide those free services for anyone in the town of Fairfield. So with that, I would like to just give an overview of the support that the town of Fairfield has shown to us and how we're supporting and utilizing the funding that we've received the past few years from the town. Once again, we're coming before you to ask for some more support for $6,100 to continue the same services that we have been providing and actually what we've done with those dollars over the past few years, which has grown. The leadership of the First Selectman's Office and this board have paved the way to strong and effective partnerships with the Fairfield Police Department, the educational institutions, and other human service organizations and social service organizations, which also includes our library system here in Fairfield and many other municipal employees and private citizens that not only volunteer but also support us in many ways needed, as you can only imagine. What I've distributed to all of you are the statistics of the individuals since June 30th of 2014 in the town of Fairfield that we have helped. We've broken it down by age, as you can see, starting with young children under the age of 18 years old, and that progress all the way to over 65 years old. By program and services, what we have provided is through our court advocacy services. Anyone in the town of Fairfield that calls 911 and accesses the Fairfield Police Department many times will end up having to go through our court advocacy program, and they'll have a date in court, usually within 24 to 48 hours, so that a judge can hear the circumstances of the situation. Last year, we provided 162 Fairfield residents with free court advocacy services. We have 5 employees at Golden Hill Street that help someone navigate the court system. As you can only imagine, the trauma that goes through the family in the town is quite dramatic. So many times it might be the first time someone is going to court for something such as a domestic violence call. In addition to that, when our advocates are aware of what's happened at court, that particular family, usually the victim, because we are victim advocates, will also counsel them, give them free support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have access to hotlines. We also have a safe house, obviously at an undisclosed area within the community, where someone, if they feel that their life might be in risk, can be sheltered with their children, and there is no cost to any of the support that's given. 73 individuals from Fairfield with children utilized our Safe House last year. The Integrated Family Violence Services is a unit at the agency where 2 of our social workers will go to the home, and 9 Fairfield families utilized that particular unit. And what we'll do there is we work with the batterer, the victim, and the children to see how the family can progress and move forward. Many times people automatically assume that if there's a domestic violence case that it means there's a complete separation, and that's a myth. So our Integrated Family Violence Services, as well as many other counseling services that we do provide, will many times lead to hopefully a positive outcome. And it's different for each family. Many times it's staying together, and many times it's living apart. So there is no cookie cutter for every single domestic violence case. It's all very individualized. Moving down through our statistics, we also see that we have our multidisciplinary investigative team. This is the unit that works with the Fairfield Police Department and the youth officer here in town, where there has been a disclosure of a child under the age of 18 years old, whether it's through school or recreational facility. It could come from anywhere where law enforcement is informed that a child has been sexually assaulted or is living in a severe domestic violence home. There were 13 children that we served last year in the town of Fairfield under the age of 18. And we do all of the forensic interviews at the Center for Family Justice. We all start with most of the counseling here at 100 Mona Terrace in Fairfield. For sexual assault advocacy, there were 16 reports in Fairfield last year and 16 sexual assaults that did receive every possible counseling and clinical services that we have at the agency. Once we feel that we've moved someone forward, usually after anywhere from 12 months to 18 months, they may need to be involved in a support group or have additional traumatic services. So there's no extended time that says, okay, now you can't have services anymore. Some people will utilize these services for years. So it's not come in for 8 weeks and your time is up. I just wanted to be clear on that. But let's talk about something very positive. And now I'm moving into community education and training. This year, 163 students in the town of Fairfield received our free prevention education, which has really developed where we're working in Ludlow as well as Ward, where there is a youth group called RAFT, and their acronym stands for Raising Awareness for Fairfield Teens. This has been the formulation of the social worker who works at Andrew Ward High School, Fairfield Ward, I'm dating myself backwards, but at Fairfield Ward, Stephanie Swiss, who gets all the credit for really looking at kids that want to get involved, want to be advocates, so that there is a wonderful climate of teen dating violence that might occur, and they get in front of it and they advocate that this is not acceptable behavior. This has been a direct outcome, again, of the kids that have been with us, and I know for Selectman McCarthy-Vahey's daughter, Emma, has been very involved, and out of that now, Ludlow has also started a RAFT group as well. So we're very excited, and this is actually something we'd like to see in our other towns, so my hat's off to Fairfield for really getting their high school kids involved in this program. So all in all, with all the programs that we've been serving in Fairfield, we reached 436 residents from all ages, again, going back from young children and toddlers all the way up to our elders that have unfortunately been affected by domestic violence or sexual assault. One of the highlights in the last 2 years has also been not just our domestic violence vigils that we host at Sherman Green, with the attendance that has been growing, over 100 people coming to recognize and in remembrance, thinking about those who lost their lives in Connecticut to a domestic violence situation, but most importantly, all the great work that's happening. And it goes back to the high school kids that have gotten involved with the Center for Family Justice that are now leading those vigils for us, which is great for me. I love to just take the microphone and pass it over, because the youth voice is the voice of the future, and we realize that it's very important that we are training our kids so that as they move out of our public schools and onto their college educations or whatever else it is that they're going to do, that they understand there's zero tolerance for abuse, and we're seeing those models right here in our school system. In addition to that, we started a Walk a Mile in Her Shoes, and I give the credit once again to Fairfield for leading this endeavor. Chief Gary McNamara has been not only supporting our men's initiative in the greater Bridgeport region and in the town of Fairfield, which encompasses and engages men and young boys of all ages not to condone violence against women, girls, or anyone, or each other. And we've been working on something called the White Ribbon Campaign, again, for the last 5 years, since we've had space at Mona Terrace at the Senior Center. So 2 years ago, we decided as a collective we, through our Fairfield Advisory Task Force, which Jennifer Carpenter is the chairperson of, and we have many folks from the town of Fairfield that meet every other month, sometimes monthly, depending on what's happening. And we talk about what are those opportunities that we can either share or enhance on education and awareness. So the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes was just an idea that we thought we'd have a walk from the Starbucks near the train station to the Town Hall Green for Selectmen. Tetro has always opened it up for us and given his support, as well as many other individuals that support the work that happens not only in Fairfield, but in the state of Connecticut. Many of our political figures have been supportive on this issue. And again, it goes back to the amount of kids that have gotten involved. So when we talk about the adults that joined this walk, we thought the first year we might have 100. We had 380 individuals, 90% of them Fairfield residents. There was no charge. It's just a free event that walked to the Town Hall Green from Starbucks, and last year we broke the records of 430. So on May 2nd, we hope to get even bigger and better, and as we've been doing a lot of training at Fairfield University, Sacred Heart University, and in our schools, with the new laws that have changed effective January 1st, we know that President Obama has mandated every college and university in America have training on sexual assault for incoming freshmen across the country. So we are abiding by all of that. And Fairfield University had some roundtables where Senator Blumenthal really supported the voices of students here at Fairfield U. And We just finished training over 1,000 incoming freshmen just at Fairfield University with a staff of 3. So it's really incredible work that we're seeing happening, from the vigils to the support that the Fairfield Library has shown us with many activities, raising awareness, helping support our safe house for those who can't have a voice, for those who need a voice, for those who need support at their darkest moment. We realize that our Fairfield Police Department is our strongest partner with, of course, all of you that help support the efforts at our satellite office. A program that went into play, Fairfield, again, being the lead town in Lower Fairfield County, by participating in something called lethality assessment programming. What happens is when there's a 911 call for domestic violence, the law enforcement have all been trained with the leadership of Detective Carrie Dowling, who's an expert in domestic violence. So the patrolmen who go to the home, which you can only imagine is very intense. You don't know what you're going to see. You don't know if there are weapons in the house, and there's always kids. So when they're entering the door, one officer will try to decide who might be the victim. The other officer tries to figure out who might be the perpetrator. A very difficult situation in many cases, because we do have men that are also victims of domestic violence. What will happen is at that scene, the officer, when they determine they think who the victim might be, most of the time it is the female, will have direct access to our 24/7 hotline. The officer will make a phone call, connect them to immediate services, see if they need to be housed, moved out of the home, and it has really reduced the severity of the domestic violence cases. This past year, there were 21 lethality assessments used with the hotline, with the Center for Family Justice and law enforcement. Those 21 cases could very easily have turned into something a lot more severe. And because between the collaboration of the police department and the center services, we felt that we actually saved 21 individuals from a homicide. And just to wrap up, with the work that the advisory task force has been doing on community awareness, prevention, and education, and the amount of individuals that we have seen at the satellite office this past year, 71 did utilize the office on Mona Terrace. So when I mentioned the 436 people that we did serve, I just wanted to point out, by providing an office right here in Fairfield, it really is not just convenient, but it's an area where someone can go in. You wouldn't know why you were entering the senior center. It still has that confidentiality. We have our own entrance, and we have an advocate that's there. Social services is there, so we work very closely together with the town, and we appreciate all that happens. And most importantly, that we're working together, we're reducing the severity of domestic violences. They have not led to anything that has been more severe than what we've already seen. And when we start looking at where we're going with the town and what we've been doing with our citizens, in October of 2015, we'll be opening and cutting a ribbon on the Center for Family Justice. One of the reasons why I do believe we are very grateful to be the recipient this year of the Fairfield Christmas Tree Festival. We will have one-stop services all under one roof, which will have access to Fairfield residents, where they can come in, not only get their counseling here in town, but if they need additional access, they will have access to free legal services beginning next fall. We have 17 pro bono attorneys that have secured and committed to the Family Justice Center, in addition to law enforcement in Bridgeport and all of our towns that will support intake services and work together, as well as wellness and our congregation of churches that will be providing spirituality, as well as 19 other nonprofits that will be providing all free and confidential services. It's been 5 years in the planning. We will be the first Justice Center in Connecticut to add to the 95 in the United States, which has been identified as best practices by the Department of Justice. So we're very excited. We're also very nervous, but we're very excited about the creation of this Justice Center, so that victims of abuse will have everything they need in one place and keep them safe, especially their children. So I'll conclude there.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments from my colleagues or questions?
Just quickly, I'd like to say thank you very much for your presentation and for being here and for opening our eyes to everything you do. I mean, this is just a tremendous effort that your organization puts together for our town and for our region. So thank you very much for that. The one quick comment, I guess it is, you know, you mentioned a few words that are near and dear to my heart, you know, zero tolerance, and, you know, you're seeing all the commercials now for no more, you know,
Yes.
and you'll see a lot of the sports figures. That issue has unfortunately attracted a lot of attention lately,
It has.
but they appear to be trying to take a negative situation and turn it into a positive exposure for organizations like yours that are helping victims and helping prevent these things from happening. So it looks like everyone's working together and working hard, and, you know, thank you for all you do for all the people in our town.
Thank you. We thank you. It's a we. It's a big we. We couldn't do it alone. So with the support of the municipality and law enforcement and all
Yeah.
the social service agencies, again, it is a collective we. So thank you.
It's a big we.
It is a big we.
Kristen?
Thank you, and thank you so much for being here, and you know, I love the work that you all do and hope to continue to support that, and as you said, family support. I actually have a question for you. When you were talking about the domestic violence advocacy number, clients served, and you mentioned that, and I wanted to clarify, all 73 people made use of the Safe House services?
Yes, it could be for one day, or it could be for 1 month. It could be a temporary stay before they move somewhere else. Many times, what we see in our suburban towns, we do have a lot of transient folks that don't have the family environment that they can just go and move to somewhere where mom and dad, the old days of the neighborhood where you're growing up in that town, and maybe I'll just go stay with the relative. But in addition to that, even if the relative is there or the friend, we will also analyze the situation, and it might not be safe for that family member or friend many times to take that person in, where we know we can provide that safety shelter and keep them safe and not jeopardize other individuals. And people are so good-hearted because they want to open up their extra bedroom or their extra couch, and we think that's wonderful. But many times, if the assessment means it could jeopardize everyone, not only themselves, we will tell them, we really would like you to stay at the safe house until we can figure something else out. And that's what's been happening. And we'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe.
I highlight that because as someone who is not afraid to talk about these issues, and you are not, it's a high number. And I think that it's a reminder that these issues are across all, you know, socioeconomic backgrounds, and that this is, you know, something that we have to address in our community too. And speaking of, the other thing that I was glad to hear you talking about was your partnership with Fairfield University and working with 1,000 freshmen in terms of training them. And I think, as Selectman Kiley referenced, there certainly have been a lot of conversations. And from my perspective, I welcome those. The attention, and particularly you mentioned Senator Blumenthal, and I know Congressman Himes is also at Fairfield University as well, to focus on the issues of sexual assault on college campuses. And my question to you is that when I was a college freshman coming in, the message was one thing, and I think some of the message now, and what I heard at Fairfield U actually, was about helping both our young women and our young men understand the messages about consent and what that means, and just wondered if those trainings that you're doing with Fairfield U, are they gender specific to the young people, or is the same message going to everyone? Just curious.
They're very
about that.
gender specific and also across both genders. We have a male educator and female educator. And when you look at what's more approachable when you're walking into a large classroom, especially when we're seeing, we were at Fairfield U for 3 weeks, You're walking into a classroom of, we've tried to break it down to 30 to 35 at a time because we wanted to have the interaction of questions. That's actually still a large group, but somewhere, somehow we had to, figure out how to do that with the staff at Fairfield University. And to have the male educator talking to the young men as well, saying, here's what the law says, and here's what I want to say to you, but here's how you can be helpful. And that's where our White Ribbon Campaign and Men's Initiative, getting young men involved to be advocates to keep safe campuses, is really a very easy task for many of the young men that are attending these trainings. They want to be helpful. We see from some of the fraternities as well as some of the student ambassadors at the universities beyond Fairfield U that want to get involved. And one of the interesting statistics that we've all learned as we've taken the trainer for trainer classes is that it's the 3% of men that are the abusers. And we, always automatically assume that it's just this great, grandiose number, which it's not. So we're talking about 97% of really great ambassadors that we want to get to help us do this work. We also realize that young men and men of all ages are also victims of abuse. And we serve everyone. And it also goes across the LGBTQ community as well. So we're addressing everyone, no matter what their socioeconomic background is, their gender preference. No is no. And our opportunity is now to not lecture down and say, don't this and don't that. It's, here's what we need you to help us do. And they also understand that the student response teams at the universities are there to help them, but they also have our organization to go to. And that's what the new law states, effective January 1st of 2015, that President Obama put into place, that says each college and campus must have a relationship with an organization like ours, so that if there's other opportunities, you have other avenues and tools. The numbers you have in front of you are extremely underreported. They look big, but they're really not, because we also realize that so many don't want to talk about that. And our advocates do hospital calls, and many times it is college campus kids. So the first thing they'll say is, I don't want you to help me, and that's where it ends. And please don't tell my parents. And our job is to say, but just talk to us, and we won't, because everything we do is confidential. And I think that's important to know, that there's help out there where what you tell us stays here. And I think that's an important trust that you have to build. So that's what we're doing at the college campuses, and we have it right at both of our high schools here in Fairfield. It's incredible work, and the town of Fairfield is really leading that work in education and prevention. So thank you for all that support. We appreciate that.
May I just, as a quick follow-up, I want to thank you, and I want to thank the First Selectman for bringing these conversations out into the open, and for doing this work, because I think the more that we are able to talk about this with folks, and I appreciate that you also spoke about our LGBTQ community as well, and the partnership, that the more that we'll be able as a community to provide the kind of support that we want to provide as a town. So I'm grateful for you being here and for you having.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Deb, I've just learned a tremendous amount from you and your organization over the last few years as I've gotten more involved in just quickly, you mentioned, it's you've set up, for lack of a better term, a one-stop shop to get all the services you need. At one point I sat in on a presentation when you brought out the Center for Family Justice and compared it to the trials that a woman in San Diego, I believe, had to go through. And it was like 26 different meetings or calls that she had to make to kind of work through her issue and bring it to the proper authorities. And here it's just one number to call. Could you repeat that number for us?
I'd be happy to. The number, if someone needed services, they would call 203-334-6154. And if that's a big number to remember, just remember 211 for the info line, because that will direct you immediately to a domestic violence agency wherever you live in Connecticut. So that's the big number, the 211. And we have a website. If you go to the Center for Family Justice, everything is right there. Any number you need. Our hotlines are on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You get a live person. We have 3 people manning the phone, and they're there to talk. So, thank you.
And again, as Kristen said, this is a difficult topic. It's not
is.
something that folks want to talk about. It's not something you come up and say to your friends, hey, here's what I learned today. I've got to compliment you in terms of how you have raised awareness in our community. Everything from the candlelight vigil on Sherman Green to the walk a mile in her shoes to, which again, Chief McNamara has done a great job in leading that, to
Fabulous.
the white ribbon campaign that Chief McNamara signed me up for, and to the university training, and I was there with Senator Blumenthal at the session, and I think when you look at the fact that our town does have 2 universities, we have a tremendous number of young people, and it's great to see that you're stepping in to help us provide additional services to the universities so they can service their students and help with that. And Detective Carrie Dowling, as you mentioned, you've mentioned, I know a very good friend of mine had a need for both your services and Detective Dowling's services, and sings her praises in terms of what she did and what she meant to their family. And I keep that with me, and that continues to reinforce to me not only your services, but the quality of personnel in our police department. And you've referenced several times that our police department is too often on point for this type of thing, that our officers have gotten special training,
They have.
that Chief McNamara has led by example in terms of getting his team involved, and that Carrie Dowling has really developed into a leader. I'm going to say across the state, perhaps it's further than that, in terms of what she has done to help forge a partnership with your group, all for the benefit of our citizens. These are things that didn't have to happen.
Right.
They happened because people cared, and people wanted to do more than just their job description. So thank you for both allowing and encouraging that, and thank you for your service to our community.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any further comments on that? Thank you very much for coming.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, item 11, the Election Process Review Committee charge. To hear, consider, and approve a charge for the Election Process Review Committee. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
All right, let's open that up for discussion. Any comments?
Find my copy.
Kristen, Kevin? Go ahead.
I'll go first. I want to, thank the Board of Selectmen for pushing this committee forward. And in light of many of the reported challenges that we had with our recent election, I think it's important that we review the office and see where we can make improvements if they're necessary, changes as well if necessary, but also in the light of, or in light of continuous improvement at all levels, I think it's a good time to take a broad view of the election process. And I think the charge as written addresses top level, the topics that we would want to get a report back on. I guess my only question on it would be, do we think the 60 days is a sufficient time to get the work done, or do we just need to be open and flexible on that, depending on how quickly the committee can work? And while there isn't any specific reference here to technology, I don't know if the question of election technology is something that we need to specifically call out in here, or if that will just kind of fall out of the, committee's work as far as the new voting technology and, how we vote differently today than we did 2 or 3 years ago.
Let me take a shot at that.
Yeah, please.
You raised 2 questions. One, the 60 days. The idea was that there are a number of issues that came up during Election Day, and some days before, some days after, in terms of what took place. Some of those may be real, and some of those maybe not.
Right.
So the question was, give the committee some amount of time. If they need more time, they can come back and ask for it, but the idea is this shouldn't take months. This should be fairly quickly, and not knowing exactly what that list is or what's involved. There are certain issues I've heard about that certainly cause my concern. but not something to say we need 90 days or 120 days or anything. I think this, and I think we owe it to the voters to address this as quickly as possible from that standpoint.
Okay.
And your second point
Was about,
the technology?
The technology piece.
Again, to me, that comes out of what the issues are.
Okay.
If they're technology related, great. If they're not, I think that just to address the other point in this, one of the questions raised, was, is this a witch hunt after certain people? And just clearly stated, no, it's not. This is about the process. This is about issues that came up, at least to my observation, more to me than in past years. I got calls on Election Day. I got calls after. I've had people reach out to me as I've been walking around and talk about, raise issues with absentee ballots, that type of thing. I didn't get enough of a handle on those to say how in-depth they were or not, but it seemed a lot more than we typically go through, so it seemed to make sense to have a quick review on this. The other thing that makes this a little bit of a different situation is that our registrar of voters report to the Secretary of State in terms of the election process and protocols. They don't really report to anybody in town. So at some point, there's a list of items coming out here, possibly some recommendations, or possibly some suggestions back to the registrars for some further follow-up. A number of these issues may have already been addressed by the registrars, but I think this becomes a way of confirming to the public and voters that the registrars have addressed this. But it's still going to go back to the registrars, and any recommendations or thoughts, suggestions that come out of here are really going to be left up to the registrars themselves to implement, since this is not something that we totally have jurisdiction over. This is
Correct.
really, from my standpoint, this is really about trust and confidence in the integrity of the election process. And when too many questions are raised, I think we need to answer those, and to the public, make sure the public knows they were answered and addressed. And Kevin, again, they may have already been addressed by the registrars,
Sure.
which may sort a
Right.
lot of this out.
Yep.
So it might be done in 30 days.
Okay. Yeah.
But I think you're right, we need to be flexible. If perchance there's something that takes a bit longer, we certainly can allow for that, but the idea is to have something come back to this board on a timely basis so it doesn't hang out for a long time.
All right. And I certainly concur with all of that, and, just to reinforce the fact that, this is not a witch hunt by any stretch of the imagination, and the fact that we're just trying to, raise awareness and maintain, whether it's the integrity or the perceived integrity of what happens when people in Fairfield vote on Election Day. So along those lines, I do support the committee and the committee's charge, and, our effort to, continue to instill the confidence of every voter in our town that their vote was properly cast, counted, and that, everything is as it should be.
Kristen, any thoughts?
Just a follow-up. So your question or thought about technology, was that, did you feel like that was?
I think so.
I'm still not exactly sure.
I think it will fall
Yeah.
out of the general concepts that I think, hover above here. The technology I was speaking of was, it wasn't that many years ago that we were, pulling levers on machines, and now we have computers, and we have paper ballots, and we have, all this electronic related, these, tabulating machines. And I just want to make sure that, in addition to the process in the office and absentee ballots and all the other topics that I'm sure will be covered, that if there are any technological challenges with our new system, that they be, at least looked at.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a few thoughts, just partly in response to those things that both of you have said, my colleagues. I appreciate having a time limit in the sense that it demonstrates that we are not looking for a long, drawn-out type of conversation. We're looking for folks to get in, to get that work done, to address the issues, and to come back to this board. And yet I struggle with that because of the holiday season and the fact that sometimes it can be more difficult with that if people are traveling and whatnot in terms of the 60 days. So I'm not making a motion, I'm just raising that for consideration in the discussion. And I guess the other comment, one of the other comments I would have is, whether or not this was an unusually large number of incidents is hard to know, lacking data. I'm not aware that we have data from previous elections in terms of the number of incidents or the type of incidents that we have had in the past. And I know we have had incidents in the past, some of which are similar to some of the things that happened this year. The fact that we've had so many split districts and even more, that's, something that has happened in the past. And I think we know no human institution is perfect, so there are always going to be things that happen. But that's just raises the issue for me is there a way that we are tracking over time, not just with this, but, and actually, if I may, through you, there are two folks here who are much more intimately familiar with this than I am. In terms of that, I would have a question. Do we have data available from past years in terms of any other issues that have arisen during the course of the election process?
Would either representative from the registrars have any comment on that? And if you do, would you please come up to the podium and the mic and introduce yourself?
I'm Roger Artori. I'm the Republican registrar for the town of Fairfield. We do have it. It's not as you would expect. Every moderator is supposed to fill in a diary. So if there's a problem with the election process, they're supposed to pencil it in. Some do very well. Some others just write about the temperature and time of day and, how many voters showed up. So there is some data over the years, as long as we've had these diary books. Whether or not it's something that's complete is another problem.
And may I
Go right ahead.
just as a follow-up to that, so it sounds like we have the diaries, but that we don't necessarily have data that's been compiled into one place that would indicate this year, this was an issue in terms of, I'll use the absentee ballot question, for example, because I have heard, and again, don't have a data point to base this on, that there have been times in the past in the different system that the counting and finalizing of numbers has taken a long time as well. So again, when you're looking at what has happened this year, it can be helpful to compare that against what has happened in the past.
Yeah, we don't usually stand by with a stopwatch to see when the moderators report back to Old Town Hall. It seemed, at least to me, that it was longer because the moderators normally just had to deal with the ballots in the scanners. So that would have been the people just coming to the polls. This time, they also had to deal with the absentee ballots regarding the reports, and also with what we call the EDR, Election Day Registration. That was, in the past, done upstairs in Old Town Hall by a separate little group.
But I think my specific question is, that data has not been compiled. Am I
It's-
correct? In other words, there
No.
are 10 voting districts, we have 10 diaries from
Right.
last year and the year before. So we don't have, some kind of compilation of data that would allow us.
Well, the actual diaries go way back before then. Some of them are 4 or 5 years. Like I said, some of them have very detailed reports, others not so much.
I think the answer to your question is no.
No.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for. So I think, and I don't have any further questions right now for.
Okay. Thank you, Roger.
May I-
Just to address your kind of quantity or numbers issue, one of the things that, this is my third election day in here. This is the first time I was on the phone with both party chairs discussing issues of ballots being handed out correctly or incorrectly to people. This is the first time I've had people after the election talking about issues that they observed. And again, not because I was asking questions, but proactively suggesting that there were more issues. I haven't heard of those many issues before. Now, that is not quantitative
Right.
research on that, and I
Right.
can't, all I can do is compare that anecdotal information to prior days,
Right.
prior election days, when I can't remember getting calls in the last two elections prior to this. So that's what raised the issue in my mind. When I look at, to your question on technology, when we have a machine that goes down, as we did, we had issues with testing the machines prior to that. I don't know if that is related or not. I don't know if, when the machine going down, the first question is, how do people vote? What's our backup plan? What's the training involved? Are the ballots counted correctly for that? And does that impact the vote counting? So all of that may be easily explained, but it just seemed to be a little bit more of a crisis situation at the time. And I know I was at the Democratic headquarters when we were looking at sending people down to that polling place to make sure that things were being processed properly. So I think those are things that may be easily reviewed and said, yep, it was handled, here's what the backup plan was, it all worked, everything, and yes, it took a little bit longer, here's why, that's reasonable. Again, if there are things that weren't, it still has to go back to the registrars to ask them to address that in the future. But I think because everybody was so aware and that was such a visible incident, there are certainly questions out there in the minds of voters is, did anybody's vote get lost? Did anybody not get a chance to vote? And we saw that take place in Bridgeport a few years ago when the line took so long, the processing took so long, the voters left. So it's not that anybody mishandled their vote, they left without voting because of the incidents at the polls. And I think that we just want to make sure that every Fairfield voter that wants to vote has that opportunity.
Well, just to back up for a second, our ability to vote and for our votes to count is really at the core of our democracy and of our country. And I wholeheartedly support all efforts, whether it's this conversation with this committee or the work of our registrars and as well as Holly, who is, there all the time to make sure that happens, and all of our moderators and Election Day employees. So I'm always interested, as you know, in assessing how we're doing, and I've said many times here, there's always room for improvement in everything we do. I do know firsthand from past elections of being at polling places when we've had, some ballots switched in within split districts. And I know definitely my own experience on Election Day of voters who had confusion with their address and had to go to multiple places. Again, there are some things that are different. Our same-day registration, that's relatively new to us. I mean, in terms of our history. So I'm completely supportive of a group going forward. I would also like to emphasize that, no, this is about how we as a town, all of us collectively, a Board of Selectmen, but our registrar's office, our registrars together, working together to assure that we have integrity in this election system. And I think there's a big piece of that my last comment is, actually this is a question. Have either of the registrars commented on the charge and I know we only have one registrar here today, but have had any input into what they might like to see discussed as part of this? Or do you see that as them being part of the conversation and the process?
The draft of the charge was available late today. It was distributed out to both registrars, but at this point, I haven't heard back, though. I haven't heard back.
Okay. But I guess my main point with that is that.
But just certainly with two representatives from the registrar's office here, certainly their comments at this point, when we get to public comment, will be welcome.
Right, of course. So I think the biggest thing is that we all have to continue to work together as a town collectively, and it's certainly, as we said before with the Center for Family Justice. It's very much a we. You know, we obviously have our leaders who move that process forward in a very specific way, but that we all together are responsible for that. So I support this. I'm not going to be making an amendment on the 60 days because I think there's always an ability to amend going forward as well. For
Yeah,
example,
they
if
can,
that-
they can definitely come back to us and request more time if there's, and again, from this board standpoint, it would be, you know, is what they plan to do after 60 days a reason to extend it?
Right.
So we'll have a chance to revisit that question if need be. Again, I didn't want to assume that that any of the issues was bigger than it might be. You know, there were specific examples that I heard about somebody getting the wrong ballot. Not clear on how many people that happened to. There's a very specific person it happened to, so we're pretty sure it happened once.
Right.
We're not sure that it went beyond that, or how many times it happened before that. And I don't mean to suggest that it impacted the results in any of the races that took place. But everybody has a right to vote, and at least some people didn't get that for at least one office on the ballot. So again, I think we just owe it to the voters, as well as the candidates and the volunteers that worked hard on those campaigns, as well as the people who volunteered at the polls, to clarify that it wasn't an issue, that if there are issues, here's the resolution going forward, so people have confidence in the elections going forward. The number of districts, you know, may have been an issue, and that may have contributed to that, and it may be as simple as we won't have that number of districts in the future, so we won't have those problems complicated by that in the future. But I think it's important to understand that. That's all. That's all.
Yep. Agreed.
I'm good.
Any further comments?
I'm good.
Over here. Open it up to the public. Any comments from the public? Seeing none. Back to the board. Any final comments before we vote? All in favor? We did have this moved, right? Did we move this, Jen?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of the charge as distributed?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
All right, thank you. That's the charge there. The next up are the committee candidates. To hear, consider, and act upon the following appointments to the election process review committee. This was postponed from last meeting. May I have a motion? Let's see. Catherine Alvin, Democrat, 2457 Burr Street. Brian Caffarelli, Republican, 129 College Place. Ron Pine, Republican, 36 High Lawn Road. And Jim Quinn, Democrat, 508 Wilson Street. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
All in favor? Oh, sorry, second?
Second.
Thank you.
Oh, he's really moving us
Sorry,
along.
sorry. Jumping ahead there way too fast. I'm seeing that, I read Jim Quinn, Democrat, on here, that there looks to be a cross-out of what was there before that on the agenda, so as an amendment, may I make a motion for an amendment?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I move to amend item 12, 12-4, and after the words James P. Quinn, open parens, make the D, or make the F to a D, to signify the Democratic Party.
All right, a second?
I will second that.
All right, any further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that's done. Any other comments or questions at this time? Go ahead.
Just from a logistical standpoint, will the first selectman's office be coordinating an initial meeting or helping? So who will actually get that group going?
Yes, we will, as we do with other committee appointments. I'm also going to suggest to the committee that, given the short time frame and given the expectation to move this forward and get things rolling, that Catherine Alban would be a suggestion for chair based on her background on the Board of Finance, but specifically Board of Ed, and being chair of that body, and that Ron Pine be considered as vice chair And given he's currently serving on the Fairfield Parking Authority as chair, so they're both familiar with Robert's Rules, FOI, how to run meetings to get this to kind of jump-started a little bit quicker. We don't want to spend as much time on the initial logistics as we might otherwise, if that's okay with this board.
My only comment there is I would just prefer to let them figure out their own leadership, but that's my only comment.
Okay. Any further discussion on the candidates? And again, just for the record, I reached out to both party chairs and asked for 2 representatives to make up these bonds. These are the 4 people that came back from the respective party chairs as their suggestions to be on this. All 4 have agreed to serve on this committee. I think that that seemed like a rational approach, given that the registrars each represent one of the parties in town. The registrar's office has 1 representative from each party for balance. This committee is structured the same way with representatives from each party to work together to do this. So that seemed like the most rational and reasonable approach in doing this.
Well, and thank you for bringing forward, I know last time, we have all the names in balance here, and I guess I would reference again my comments about working together, but also for this group, and I know that none of them are here today, but that they will be, as I know that they are, as individuals, and I know some of them better than others, but fair, impartial, and as dispassionate as they can in terms of as they go forward. You know, I know we've had a lot of conversation about the election and different roles, but I think that that's really important as this group moves forward, and I have full confidence that they will be.
All right.
I'm good.
Further? Okay. Any comments from the public? All right, back to the board. Are we ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And Jen, we just make a note that tomorrow, first thing, we get the charge out to these 4 folks, as well as congratulate them on their serving on this committee. All right? And so let's get together first thing on that. All right, next up, though I don't see the Affordable Housing Commission here.
You couldn't be here today.
So I'm going to ask that we postpone the affordable housing update to a date certain, the next Board of Selectmen meeting, December 17th. Can I have a motion in that regard?
I move to postpone item 13 to a date certain, that date being December 17th, 2014.
Second?
I second that.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next up, to review and modify the Fair TV operational charge revised by the Board of Selectmen on June 16, 2014. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right, the reason this is on our agenda is this charge currently terminates on December 31st, 2014.
Right.
I talked to the chair of the committee, asked if a 90-day extension would give them time to get things resolved with the RTM ordinance. He said he believed it would.
Okay.
So I would suggest that we amend this to read, committee shall terminate on March 30th, 2015. Can I have a motion in that regard?
I move under item 14 to amend the Fair TV Operational Committee charge to read at the bottom, this committee shall terminate March 31st, 2015.
All right. A second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the amendment?
Just to clarify where that is in the RTM process, so that you spoke with the chairman, and I'm wondering, I have not spoken most recently with the sponsors of that ordinance and the RTM in terms of knowing how likely it is that that will be a voting item.
It's in committee. I think it had gone back to one of the committees
Okay, I thought.
recently. And I'm just not sure of the timing, because it had gone and it came back.
Right.
I think it's gone back, and 90 days should give them the December meeting, the January meeting, the February meeting, and the March meeting to get that resolved. Worst cases, we might have to extend it again, but 90 days sounded like a reasonable time
Okay.
frame.
Yes, it does sound reasonable, and I will just say, I hope it does not need to be extended. And I think that there's been a lot of good conversation, and I'm very hopeful that you two and whoever the other person who will be joining you is will not need to do that in March.
All right.
Just say that now.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kiley, any comments?
No, I'm good.
Any comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. Are we ready to vote?
Yes.
On the amendment, and the amendment only, all in
Right.
favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
The item as amended stands before us. Any further discussion?
No comment.
Nope.
All right. Ready to vote on the item as amended?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Next up, item 15, the Board of Selectmen meeting dates for calendar year 2015. Have you had a chance to take a look at these, and are we okay with these?
I have, and I want to thank your office for the communication back and forth and the cooperation on one date that I know I could not make due to a business trip. So other than that, it looks good, and that change has been made, so it seems to work for me.
Kristen?
And I will confess that I did not review these dates as carefully as I usually do.
That's a short-timer syndrome here.
Well, I think it's the only item that I may have, but I will ask, did we make sure that we have considered the holy days and holidays in September, October timeframe? Does anyone, I can double check right now.
answer that.
Yep, to the best of my knowledge, we did.
Okay, yeah. I only ask that because it's certainly easier to have regular meetings as opposed to special meetings.
I wouldn't argue with that.
So, okay.
May I have a motion to accept these calendar dates?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Item 16, First Selectman budget meetings for calendar year 2015. May I have a motion to accept the dates as printed?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, now these have been coordinated with the Board of Finance, so they should line up there. And the Board of Finance dates were reviewed and I believe voted on by the Board of Finance last night.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Seems so long ago.
Yes, it does.
So I think we're good to go on these. Any further comments or discussion?
No.
All right, ready to vote?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's done. That brings us to the tax collector. To consider and act upon tax refunds as recommended by the tax collector in the amount recommended. May I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Any amendments?
Indeed, there is one amendment, if we can add at the end of that sentence, $8,159.01.
Oh, wow. All right.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. The item as amended stands before us. Any further discussion on the item? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We've got that. May I have a motion to go in private executive session to discuss pending litigation? We have two items.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are moving into private executive session. All right, thank you. May I have a vote to come out of private executive session?
So
Motion?
moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are now back in public session. I want to note that while we were in private executive session, no motions were made and no votes were taken. However, now that we're back in public, may I have a motion to accept the recommendations from each attorney?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any further discussion on those motions or recommendations? Are we ready to vote?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Kennelly, you are now extended until
I am.
March 31st.
Great. Any
All right.
questions?
Well, just, thank you for coming by. Sorry we got done so quick. All right, that is the last item on our calendar. Next up, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Jerry, let us know when the mic is off.